Most people take their good quality drinking water for granted, and you'd think there'd be no problems with that in New Zealand, except if you live in Tokomaru. Christine Toms is a member of a group of people in Tokomaru, the residents, who are a little upset about the quality of the drinking water. Tell us what's wrong with your water.
Right now, what's right with it? We were told that our water would be upgraded in the 2013-14 pipeline with Shannon. So we were advised to boil the water until that time. But of course, when the long-term plan came out this year, that had all changed. We were then told that we had to boil our water for the next at least 10 years. And now it looks going to be 2025 until we could get decent drinking water for Tokomaru.
That's 14 years away, 12 years away. Maths was never my forte. 12 years, a dozen years.
Could be even more.
Now, this is with the Horowhenua District Council, because they're the governance body in these here parts.
Yes, they're the local authority responsible for drinking town supply water here.
So, okay, where does Tokomaru's drinking water come from?
It actually comes from the Tokomaru River, up at Horseshoe Bend, which is way up in the hills up there. But before that, it actually comes from numbers 1 and 2 dams and tributaries from there.
And so it's taken straight out of the river, and I presume, because you have to boil it, it's not treated.
Exactly. So all sorts of things wander through this river before we get to it. And of course, the resultant protozoa, Giardia, Cryptosporidium, is still in the water when it comes to our taps.
Which means it's not technically fit for human consumption.
Absolutely not. Otherwise, the council wouldn't be telling us to boil it.
Now, this boiling, it's not just wait till the kettle boils and whip yourself up a cup of tea sort of boiling, is it?
No, definitely not. You have to do what's called a 3-minute rolling boil, which means that you don't bring the water up to the boil in the jug. You have to boil the jolly stuff for 3 minutes before they can say that it's okay, it's safe to drink. Not only drinking, but cooking water and cleaning your teeth, and to be honest, even laundry wouldn't be the best.
Now, that even affects the school that's across the highway behind us, does it?
Most definitely. And you try and imagine boiling water for 60 kids each day. It's impossible.
So what happens?
Well, the principal, when I asked him last week, he said, because he lives in Palmerston North, he said he brings his own water. And then he laughed and said he actually charges the kids themselves. But he didn't really mean that. He said that the children usually bring their own bottled water to drink, so that's really how they get round it.
So there are places here that aren't affected by that because of because they have bore water. Is that the story?
Yes, most definitely. People out of the village are on their own bore water, but of course that means they're not affected by the compulsory boil notice and the disastrous water.
Now, you feel this pushing out the boil water notice for the next 12 or so years is a bit of misleading advertising by the District Council.
Most definitely. When Arthur, my husband, and I arrived here in late 2011, we did notice that there were these notices coming around from Council to say that we had to boil the water, along with Shannon. But all this would be remedied in the 2013-14 upgrade from the new pipeline. But now, not for Tokomaru.
So how did Tokomaru get bounced out of the upgrade with Shannon?
Apparently we don't reach the deprivation criteria, which doesn't seem to be a great deal to do with money, but it was deprivation, which they said we don't reach that particular level, that particular platform, so we could be bounced out of their planning for the water.
I don't understand actually what deprivation criteria is all about.
No, neither do I, but that's what it says. To be honest, having to boil your water, having to import water, that's deprivation. And remember, we have got families here, we've got small children, we've got people who are older and sick, and it is just not good enough.
So that puts Tokomaru very firmly into third world category, unless, of course, you're at the Domain, where you don't have to boil your water for some reason.
No, when we had a meeting on the 4th of June at the RSA, somebody asked the mayor if he could put up a boil water notice, compulsory boil water notice at the Domain, where people stop off on their way travelling through from the Manawatu to the Horowhenua. And he said no, because he didn't want to put people off. He didn't want to scare them.
Well, he must be reasonably confident that the water is drinkable.
Well, why impose the boil water notice so rigidly? I actually spoke to the ESR, Barry Mattingly, in Christchurch a couple of weeks ago, and he said, well, if there's supposed to be chlorination, which is a sort of hit and miss thing, why put a boil water notice out? He said it just doesn't make sense.
So obviously the residents are reasonably upset by this, but what sort of steps are you taking to try and get some action?
Well, various people have written to various ministries. We've actually got a petition going in the shop here. There's only 140 houses, but we've got, well, 4 pages of signatures already. I'm not quite sure how many there are there. And we'll carry on getting these signatures, which will go to the Prime Minister, John Key, who's also the Minister of Tourism. So perhaps he ought to be aware that the Domain needs a boil water notice. And the Minister of Local Government, Chris Tremaine, and the Minister of Health, Tony Ryle. All these people need to be informed, and we need to get this done now.
Now, one of the arguments that the Horowhenua District Council have used is that they actually need some sort of subsidy, otherwise, in order to improve the water, otherwise the ratepayers of Horowhenua won't be able to afford your water. I
agree. On the other hand, what have they done with the money? In 2000, the ratepayers in Tokomaru raised $1.2 million to have this fantastic water treatment put up at the Horseshoe Bend, which of course there's no water treatment at all. Be a good question to ask what's happened to that money. But also, I think the government has now got to step in and do something for Tokomaru.
Now, you've also had talks with Palmerston North Mayor John O'Naylor.
Most definitely, and he was quite accepting of the fact that Palmerston North could provide Tokomaru with water. They've got some investigation to do, they've got feasibility, the physical aspect, and of course, over and above everything, the financial aspect. But he is not against the idea at all.
And of course, you're getting plenty of media coverage out of this, so perhaps with a little more stirring, something might happen before 2025.
The media coverage has been absolutely fantastic, and we really appreciate, thank you, all that you've done. Yeah, before 2025, actually before 2014.
Good luck with that.